Namaste all, and welcome to our continuing series with Ranga. And today we are on the essays on the Gita. The chapter is the significance of sacrifice, and we begin at the top of the page with the line, "But all even of the yogins."
Yeah. So, in the previous para, he has told us a few things which we can just reiterate again so that we have a clear picture of what he is going to say.
Yes.
The chapter is the significance of sacrifice. Now, sacrifice, the words used in the Gita is yajna. Okay. Now, yajna normally means the ritual of reciting mantras while you have lit a fire and you are going on throwing. Physically, you are throwing twigs and branches and things which are combustible. Combustibles you are throwing into the fire and reciting some mantras so that your aim, what you want to get achieved, does get fulfilled. That's the whole idea.
May I ask you what importance it has in the integral yoga?
In the integral yoga, the physical sacrifice has no meaning at all.
Thank you.
But in the subtle sense, in the spiritual sense of sacrifice, which I was just about to say, then it has the greatest significance in the in integral yoga. And what is that significance? Everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you emote, all has to be done for the divine. All your thoughts also, they should go towards the divine and you offer it to them. Whatever work you are doing also should be offered to the divine, and whatever you are thinking also, everything should be directed divine words. Okay, that's the whole idea. And what is the purpose of that? The purpose is to know and live and act in this unifying consciousness to be free. You will get the divine consciousness, and in that divine consciousness you will have a oneness with everybody, and you will also be free. You will not be bound to your body, mind, life, and there will be no demands made on you from the body, the life and the mind. Otherwise, the normal man is always subject to his demands from the body, demands from the vital, and demands from the mind. Demands from the body, food and drink and sleep. Demands from the vital, desires, attachments and egoistic movements. Desire in the mind, preferences. Okay? You prefer certain ideas and you don't. So all these things you will be free from if you do sacrifice in the right way. And sacrifice in the right way is one of the main parts of the Karma Yoga, not of the Jnana Yoga, nor of the Bhakti Yoga. But the sacrifice comes into the very strong manner in the Karma Yoga. Whatever you do it for the Lord and not for yourself. Obviously, if you do that, your ego will slowly fritter away. It will slowly dissolve. So, when the ego dissolves, you will naturally rise to the higher consciousness of the self. So, that's the whole idea. Now, this is the idea which you should have, and this is the knowledge that you should have, that sacrifice is done for union with the divine. Okay? So, now, I read the para first. I'll read the entire para and then we'll come back to it.
Rangada,
Yes.
is union with the divine same as identification with the divine?
Yes, it's the same thing. And that's right. Union with the divine can be also, it can be a touch, it can be a relation, and it can be absolute identification with the divine. Your consciousness merges into the divine consciousness. At that time, you will feel yourself to be divine. That's what the avatar feels. No? Now, but all even of the yogins have not attained to this knowledge. So, now we are putting quotes, they are all the quotations from the Gita. Some yogins follow after the sacrifice, which is of the gods. So, some of the sacrifice is offered to the gods. Others offer the sacrifice by the sacrifice itself into the Brahman fire. The former conceive of the divine in various forms and powers and seek him by various means, ordinances, dharmas, laws, or as we might say, settled rites of action, self-discipline, consecrated works. For the latter, those who already know the simple fact of sacrifice, of offering whatever work to the divine itself, of casting all their activities into the unified divine consciousness and energy, is their one means, their one dharma. The means of sacrifice are various. The offerings are of many kinds. There is the psychological sacrifice of self-control and self-discipline, which leads to the higher position and self-knowledge. Some offer their senses into the fires of control. Others offer the objects of sense into the fires of sense. The others offer all the actions of the sense and all the actions of the vital force into the fire of the yoga of self-control, kindled by knowledge. There is, that is to say, the discipline which receives the objects of sense perception without allowing the mind to be disturbed or affected by its sense activities. The senses themselves becoming pure fires of sacrifice. There is the discipline which stills the senses so that the soul in its purity may appear from behind the veil of mind action, calm and still. There is the discipline by which, when the self is known, all the action of the sense perceptions and all the action of the vital being are received into that one still and tranquil soul. The offering of the striver after perfection may be material and physical, dravya yajna, like that consecrated in worship by the devotee to his deity, or it may be the austerity of his self-discipline and energy of his soul directed to some high aim, tapo yajna, or it may be some form of yoga like the pranayama of the Raj Yogins and Hatha Yogins, or any other yoga yajna. All these tend to the purification of the being. All sacrifice is a way towards the attainment of the highest. You can see very clearly here that the meaning of the word yajna has been given a very, very wide sense. Okay? So that's what we will discuss. So it's a little confusing, but we have to understand it in that way. The yajna is a Godward movement, and the Godward movement, okay, is, you have to see how it can be done. There are so many different ways. In the Gita also there are all these different methods, 7 or 8 methods. So what those methods are, we'll have a look. So, I go back to the beginning of the text. Okay. But all, even of the yogins, have not attained to this knowledge. That's very clear. What is the knowledge? That you have to give all your actions, all your thoughts, everything that you are doing to the supreme divine. But the others don't do that. Okay? Take a businessman. They will offer their offerings, they will sacrifice to Ganesha or to the Lord of Wealth, okay, or to the gods if they want something. So this is not the divine, they are lesser deities. So that's what I am explaining. Some yogins, in quotes, so this is from the Gita itself, chapter 4, verse 25. Some yogins follow after the sacrifice which is of the gods. So they offer their things to the gods. Okay? We have discussed many times, even when people used to send money, it's an offering and a sacrifice to mother and the ashram, but they expect something back. So you should not expect anything back, that's the highest sacrifice. And not only your money, but everything that you are. It's the most difficult of all, and the other ones are much easier, but usually that is the sacrifice. So sacrifice ranges from the very, very selfish motive of giving money to the divine or anything else, but also it goes right up to the highest spiritual sacrifice which is giving yourself and all you have and all you own to the divine. So, this is the discussion which is going to take place now. Some offer, others offer the sacrifice by the sacrifice itself. Now that's difficult to understand, okay? So, but you have to stretch your conception of sacrifice. The sacrifice which is into the Brahman fire. So, constantly thinking of the Brahman and directing all your thoughts and all your actions into the Brahman. Of course, our perception of the Brahman or our conception of the Brahman is not perfect at all, but that doesn't matter. As the sacrifice proceeds, the conception of the divine will become clearer and clearer and clearer. We always begin with a wrong notion and a very limited notion of God, but that can change. The former conceive of the divine in various forms, okay? The former are the yogins, all the yogins who are not doing it in the right way, okay? So, the former conceive of the divine in various forms and powers and seek him by various means, ordinances, dharmas, laws, or as we might say, settled rights of action. All these words that Srila used, we will see that he is explaining in the next few sentences. Okay. Settled rights of action, self-discipline, consecrated works. Consecration is offering and making whatever you are offering, it becomes holy because it is directed towards the divine. Consecration. For the latter, who are the latter? The ones who are offering by the sacrifice into the Brahman fire. No intermediary, no gods, no lesser gods, nothing, directly. For the latter, those who already know the simple fact of sacrifice by offering whatever work to the divine itself, of casting all their activities into the unified divine consciousness and energy, is their one means, their one dharma. So the yogis who already know what sacrifice is, their sacrifice itself is the offering. That's what is meaning. So when I am thinking of the divine, that itself is an offering. The offering itself is the offering. That's what he seems to be saying. Okay, so the means of sacrifice are various, different kinds of sacrifice. The offerings are of many kinds. There is the psychological sacrifice of self-control. That also is a Suppose I have the habit of anger, okay? I try to control my anger. That also is a yajna. That also is a sacrifice. Why? Because after all, you are trying to get rid of your anger. That which you sacrifice in that sense. The anger that you had, you are sacrificing to the Lord. Sounds a little funny, but that's how it is. Okay, so that also is a sacrifice. There is a psychological sacrifice of self-control and self-discipline, which leads to the higher self-possession and self-knowledge. Once you do that, you will end up with self-knowledge. Okay, so you will know yourself. But if you know yourself fully, you will also know the divine in yourself. And when you know yourself, that's the first step. Then you have to know the divine in the cosmos, and then you have to know the divine transcendent, outside the cosmos. Those three basic stances of the divine: transcendent, cosmic, and individual. Some offer their senses into the fires of control. Others offer the objects of sense into the fires of sense. So, objects of sense into the fires of sense is very easy to understand. Okay, I am attached to money, that's or I am attached to beautiful things, okay, or I am attached to food. I offer that itself. In other words, I restrain from trying to satisfy my desire for greed or for good clothes or whatever. So that's the objects of sense into the fires of sense. The others, he is saying, some offer their senses into the fires of control. So it's a way of saying, but you are just controlling your senses. Don't let the senses are very often compared to wild horses who are running helter-skelter. But you are trying to rein them in. with your self-control. So that also is a sacrifice. Okay? Some offer their senses into the fires of control, others offer the objects of sense into the fires of sense. Fires of sense. Okay? And others offer all their actions of the sense and all the actions of the vital force into the fire of the yoga of self-control, kindled by knowledge. Okay, your self-control, when it is knowledgeable, certainly it is far superior to when you don't know what you are doing. Consciously, you are directing all your thoughts to the divine. Now, it's very interesting why the word fire is being used all the time. Okay, we will just dwell a very short while on that. When you concentrate, even in the physical world, when something is concentrated, it gives off heat. Okay? So when you are concentrating also in your mind or your vital and not distracting yourself and going outwards, when you pull yourself in, there is a heat that is produced in the body. Sometimes you can feel it as a fever, sometimes you can feel other effects of it, but there is a heat that is produced. That's why the word fire is used. This fire is psychological and it's not a physical fire, but the principle is the same. Physical fire purifies, we know that very well. Okay? But psychological fire also purifies your subtle impurities in your own being, in your body as well as in your vital and as well as in your mind. So that's a fire. Okay, so others offer all the actions of the sense and all the actions of the vital force into the fire of the yoga of self-control, kindled by knowledge. There is, all this chapter 4, verses 26 and 27. Okay? There is, that is to say, the discipline which receives the objects of sense perception without allowing the mind to be disturbed or affected by its sense activities. So, in other words, the discipline which makes you continue what you are doing. Okay? Suppose you have greed for certain foods, it's not that you don't do it. Some do it, but you don't need to necessarily do that. But you have to let it come into you, but without desire, without attachment. That's what is meant by this sentence. Okay? The discipline which receives the objects of sense perception without allowing the mind to be disturbed or affected by the sense activities. This is a image given in the Gita. It goes like this. When the river comes and merges into the sea is so vast that it makes no difference to the sea. It remains exactly what it was. In fact, the river that is coming, your desires or whatever are coming, the impacts from the physical world, they enter into you but leave you absolutely as calm and as undisturbed as the vast ocean. That's an image in the Gita. It's a very interesting image and very, very correct. The river going into the sea normally does not remain a river. It merges one with the sea. And the sea is always the same, calm sea. There's only in the, I'm doing a little aside, I'm going, there is one river in the physical world which remains a river in the sea, and that's the Amazon. It is so huge a river that for 5-6 miles, even when it goes into the sea, it remains pure water, drinkable, potable water. Okay, it's not seawater anymore. But the image here is that of not such a big river, but a sufficiently small river. Ultimately, even the Amazon melts into the Atlantic Ocean.
I have been on it.
Yeah,
Yes, in a boat,
yeah,
paddling by a gentleman, and we saw many beautiful things.
yes. It's a fantastic place. So, anyway, I now come to the next sentence. Vital being are received into that one still and tranquil soul. The offering of the striver after perfection may be material and physical. Dravya. Dravya is any material object. Okay? It can be an offering of drink, it can be an offering of money, it can be an offering of clothes, whatever. Okay? Many people used to offer dhotis to Sri Aurobindo. Many used to offer saris to Mother, jewelry. And many used to offer also all sorts of items carved in ivory. When you go to the servant's room and you come out, you will see that those cupboards are full of all these things that were offered to the mother. Okay, so these are all the offerings also that come. So you can offer your money also, you can offer yourself. Okay, so the value of the offering doesn't depend on the object itself, but the attitude with which you have given the thing. Okay. There is a famous story of a very poor person who gave just 1 rupee or even less to the mother, but it was so valuable that she remembered. There is an interesting story about sacrifice which I will repeat here. I may have said it earlier. Some very poor person gave some molasses, in India we call them good, okay, molasses. And mother took that and kept it on her, not exactly the desk, but where she used to stand very often in the salon. And then every day she used to take a little bit of that and put it into her mouth. After 4 or 5 days, Jivan Bhai, who used to look after her food, he told her, "Mother, what are you doing? This is old stuff and it has gone, it may even be bad. Why are you taking that?" The mother said, "I am not tasting the good, I am not tasting the molasses. I am tasting the devotion that was given through that object." So that's how the divine receives all these things, and so the value of it is in the attitude with which you have given the offering. Okay, so that is a real yajna. So the offering of the striver after perfection may be material and physical, dravya yajna, like that consecrated in worship by the devotee to his deity, or it may be the austerity of his self-discipline and the energy of his soul directed to some high aim, tapo yajna, tapas, okay, or it may be some form of yoga like the pranayama of the Raja Yogins and Hatha Yogins, or any other yoga yajna. So now see, even pranayama and asanas, they are also being called yajna. Okay, so you can see how the meaning of the word yajna, sacrifice, is taking a very, very broad stand. Okay, but it is true, because when you are doing pranayama also, you have an aim, and that aim is to reach the divine. So it's some sort of yajna, all right. All these tend to the purification of the being. All sacrifice is a way towards the attainment of the highest. Even when it is directed to the lower, it is one step towards the highest. So that's the paragraph.
The difference in sacrifice and surrender?
Surrender can become part of the sacrifice. You can sacrifice without surrender in the beginning, na? You can offer your things, okay? I can give money to the mother also, but not fully. So if I am surrendered, maybe I will give everything. The surrender is a very powerful thing. I think sacrifice can include surrender, but surrender would be the best sacrifice. You are sacrificing your own ego, you are sacrificing your own personality. That's the greatest. Surrender is the most fantastic part. Okay.
Another thought, like when Sri Aurobindo says all life is yoga, so yoga is so vast, he's included everything.
Exactly.
Such is yajna, that he's included everything.
Yes, that's right. Because even the man who is leading a selfish life, he has a soul in him. And that soul is slowly directing him, maybe through many lives. But that is why all yoga. In fact, Mother said once that when someone asked her, where does the ordinary life end and where does the spiritual life begin? Mother said there is no line between the two. Even the ordinary life also can become the spiritual life. You are an office goer, you go to the office, but you do the work not for your boss, but do it for the divine. That becomes a sacrifice. Okay, so the one thing needful, the saving principle, constant in all these variations, is to subordinate the lower activities, to diminish the control of desire and replace it by superior energy, to abandon the purely egoistic enjoyment for the diviner delight which comes by sacrifice, by self-dedication, by self-mastery, by the giving up of one's lower impulses to a greater and higher aim. They who enjoy the nectar of immortality left over from the sacrifice attain to the eternal Brahman. Verse 31, chapter 4, verse 31. It's in quotes. Okay. Srimad has not translated the Gita fully, but every now and then you will see quotes, and so he is translating, but his translation of the Gita is very fluid. It's not literal, it is literary. Okay, so the value is kept of the words, but not the actual words. So, they who enjoy the nectar of immortality left over from the sacrifice attain to the eternal Brahman. Sacrifice is the law of the world, and nothing can be gained without it. Neither mastery here, nor the possession of heavens beyond, nor the supreme possession of all. This world is not for him who doeth not sacrifice. How then any other world? We will come back to this. It's a very interesting concept, how sacrifice is the law of the world. Okay. Therefore, all these and many other forms of sacrifice have been extended in the mouth of the Brahman, the mouth of that fire which receives all offerings. They are all means and forms of the one great existence in activity, means by which the action of the human being can be offered up to that of which his outward existence is a part and with which his inmost self is one. They are all born of work, okay? All proceed from and are ordained by the one vast energy of the divine, which manifests itself in the universal karma and makes all the cosmic activity a progressive offering to the one self and Lord, and of which the last stage for the human being is self-knowledge and the possession of the divine or Brahmic consciousness. So knowing, thou shalt become free. Verse 32. Okay. Now, very interesting, he is saying very clearly that sacrifice is at every level, even in the law of the physical world. So, what does he mean by that? We will have a look. In the synthesis of yoga, he has put the meaning of sacrifice, and I will just repeat that. It's a little abstruse, but we can understand that if we concentrate on it. Srimad says the concept of sacrifice is like this. When the divine manifests himself and becomes the one, he seems to have divided himself into the many. Okay? But there is an underlying unity behind all this multiplicity. See, a good example of it is any species. Take, for instance, cats. Okay? Each cat is different from the other, but they all have a common catness, if you want, the character of the cat. You can always say which is a cat and which is a dog. So the unity is there in that species. Now extend this idea to entire humanity and all types of species, all types of animals, all type of plants, everything is connected. They are all the same thing, but you have to develop yourself spiritually to see that unity. So that's what is being said in the, and he also says that by this connectedness means you depend on everybody else. You can't depend on yourself alone in the physical world, and that also is very, very obvious. Spiritually it is not so obvious, but it is very obvious at the material level. You need your servant, you need your tailor, you need your doctor. This is all connection. You can't think that I'll exist by myself. It's not possible. So this is the sacrifice. So to get something, you have to give something. There's an exchange that goes on all the time. This is the sacrifice. And if you see that in the physical world, it's very, very obvious. If I want to buy a watch, I go to a shop. But can I get the watch without giving something? I have to part with something to get something. So, this is the sacrifice at the lowest level. And one who only wants to take and not give, same though the Gita says he is a thief. He is taking without giving, he is a thief. So, when we do something like that, it is a selfish action, and the law of connectedness does not operate in that man. So, his benefit from the sacrifice will be the minimum. That's what Sarva says in the synthesis. Okay, so now we'll have a look at each sentence. The one thing needful, the saving principle, constant in all these variations, is to subordinate the lower activities, to diminish the control of desire and replace it by superior energy, to abandon the purely egoistic enjoyment for that diviner delight which comes by sacrifice, by self-dedication, by self-mastery, by aim. By the giving up of one's own lower impulses to a greater and higher aim. So, it's very obvious from what he's saying here that it's a very slow process. It can't be done overnight. So, you slowly grow into this. Your lower activities are still continuing, but slowly you are getting rid of them. Srila uses a very interesting word in one of his letters. He says, chip away. So, for instance, you see that you have got attachment to many things. I am attached to food, I am attached to my objects, and I am attached also to something else, my family. So, he says, chip away. The word very interesting, chip away. First, concentrate on one thing, and slowly, whenever you feel the attraction, chip away at it and try to reduce that dependence. So, the word chip away is very interesting, and he has used that in one of his letters. Slowly, you will get rid of it. When the chipping is complete, then you are free from the attachment. And now this is possible because even in the physical world, the chipping away can be fantastic. I will give you a very interesting example. There is a fellow in a village, and there was a hill, and that hill was actually interfering with the road, and the road had to go round the hill, and you had to go to the next village. It would take about 2 hours to do that. This man in the village, maybe an uneducated fellow, but he thought that if I make a road through the hill, I can cut that 2-hour journey to half an hour. So he started chipping away at the hill alone, day and night, with a hammer and a chisel. And in 30 years, 3 years, he did it. So he really did that, and he was about it, and there is even a film made on him, a movie. So this is exactly what chipping away means. And you may take 30 years, you may take 20 years, you may take even 50 years. But the chipping that is what you have to do. To get rid of desire immediately at one stroke is not possible. So you have to chip away. It's very interesting. So slowly with patience you do that, and you will be free one day. So to subordinate the lower activities, to diminish the control. Look at it. Swami is saying diminish the control, not get rid of the control. You do it step by step, diminish the control and replace it by superior energy, to abandon the purely egoistic enjoyment for the diviner delight which comes by sacrifice, by self-dedication, by self-mastery, by the giving up of one's lower impulses to a greater and higher aim. So they who enjoy the nectar of immortality left over from the sacrifice attain to the eternal Brahman. This is the verse 31, where he explains that after sacrificing, whatever remains of the sacrifice, that you enjoy and that you eat, and that will make you go towards the proper attitude to the sacrifice. This is something that happens also in India very often. Suppose you have prepared your lunch for the family, and if suddenly a guest comes in, so you offer whatever you have to him, and what is left over you make do with that. So that's exactly, psychologically also you can do the same. That's what he's saying. Okay? So, they who enjoy the nectar of immortality left over from the sacrifice attain to the eternal Brahman. Sacrifice is the law of the world, and nothing can be gained without it. Neither mastery here, nor the possession of heavens beyond, nor the supreme possession of all. And what is the supreme possession of all? The Divine Himself. This world is not for him who doeth not sacrifice. How then any other world? So you have to sacrifice. And we discussed it just now. Sacrifice is there at the physical level, it's there at the vital level, it is there also at the mental level and at the spiritual level. Everywhere there is a sacrifice to be followed. Okay? So it's a very wide meaning of sacrifice. Therefore, all these and many other forms of sacrifice have been extended in the mouth of the Brahman. Now that's another concept which is very interesting, and we can discuss that in a short way. The mouth of that fire which receives all offerings, they are all means and forms of the great one existence in activity, means by which the action of the human being can be offered up to that of which his outward existence is a part and with which his inmost self is one. Now, in the physical world or in the cosmos, there is a constant creation and a constant destruction. Constantly it is going on. So we often think of destruction as something negative and we think of construction as something positive. Not necessarily true. Both are equal to each other. Constantly destroy. You have to destroy the past in order to go to the future. So the past has always to be destroyed. And this is happening at that highest level. Okay. So extending in the mouth of the Brahman, the divine is swallowing everything but also again creating. Okay. So this is what you have to do. You should not be afraid of giving up what you have or what you own. There should be no such fear at all. Okay. You remember in The Hound of Heaven, there is a line there which says very beautifully, all that you think you have given up, I have kept for you in heaven. I am not using the exact word, but the idea is there. All that you think you have given away and you have lost, actually I have preserved them for you in heaven. So this is the mouth of the sacrifice. It goes in, but you get 10 times more than what you have given. So, and all means of the great existence. Now he is going from the individual to the universal fact, the great existence in activity. The physical world is all activity in existence, and that is being creating and destroying, creating and destroying. This also is a sort of sacrifice, a constant change. Okay. When you are sacrificing, it's not that you are only losing, you are also getting. So the same principle applies there also. When you are sacrificing your selfishness, you are getting generosity. When you are sacrificing your ignorance, you are getting consciousness. There's so much. Everything is in that way. Okay, so it's connected.
What is the nature sacrificing?
Pardon?
What is the nature, the prakriti? What is she sacrificing?
Nature of?
No, just nature.
Oh, nature means the physical world, na? In the everything is nature in the physical world. Nature is rivers, trees.
Subconsciously, nature is doing yoga. What is nature sacrificing?
Okay, I understand. Is there not an evolution in nature?
Yes.
That's a sacrifice being given. It is going from matter to life. So when it is giving up from, it is losing its attachment to matter and going to life. Then from life, the animal life, it is going to the mental level. So there is a giving up of the lower. So that also is a sacrifice. And that's evolution. You can see it in that way. No? Yeah. So, and he is applying this at a very, very high level, at a universal level. All means and forms of that one great existence in activity, means by which the action of the human being can be offered up to that TCAP. Why that? Because the divine is featureless and he is infinite. You can't bind him down to only one thing. That's why that indeterminate, okay, of which this outward of his outward existence. Sejal, his outward existence is nature, okay, is a part and with which his inmost self is one. Even in nature, which seems to be all mechanical energy and unconscious energy, he is there inside. His inmost self is there, hiding in the all the atoms even. He is there in the stone, he is there in the caterpillar, he is there in every cat, dog and human being. He is there. They are all born from work, all born of work. Okay? And work is a constant movement. So, movement from the lower to the higher. All proceed from and are ordained by that one vast energy of the divine, which manifests itself in the universal karma. So that's exactly what you asked, and that's he is explaining. It manifests in the universal karma. That nature is working. It is making the trees to grow. It is making the animals to come into existence. It is constantly doing karma, and makes all the cosmic activity a progressive offering to the one self and Lord, and of which the last stage for the human being is self-knowledge and the possession of the divine or Brahmic consciousness. So knowing, thou shalt become free. In other words, this sacrifice is there at the lowest level also, in nature. From matter you are coming to life, and from life you are coming to the mental state, and there it's a yajna, going from the lower to the higher, from the lower to the higher. That's the way he has described it. So knowing, thou shalt become free. And what is the last stage of this sacrifice and universal karma? The divine consciousness, the possession of the divine or cosmic, a Brahmic consciousness, the consciousness of Brahman. Okay, I think we have to stop here today. Narad? So,
Namaste all.
115.
Thank you, Ranga.
Okay,
Thank you.
Narad. Au revoir, everybody.